Today we're back in the laboratory working on, well, a task that I don't love doing, but it is a necessary evil. And that is cleaning the paella pan after a cooking class. And guess what? Working with a paella pan, keeping it clean and maintained, well seasoned, is extremely similar to taking care of your cast iron pan. So if you know one, the other is relatively easy. Same rules apply, but there are a few tips and tricks that are unique to paella pans that I want to talk about. So let's get started. In many ways, a cast iron pan is a little easier to work with because it's heavy, it's easier to move around from the standpoint that it's got some heft and weight to it. A paella pan is very thin, very lightweight. It does have a pop on it. It has a pop top. You can see that it's rounded, and that's on purpose. So that's when you're creating the chorchata, the last step of making paella, and you're toasting the rice near the end of the cooking process, that you want to get that nice char. So having a thinner pan that has a rounded bottom to it really aids in that. This is not a deficiency in the pan whatsoever. By the way, paella pans are relatively inexpensive. I got this a few years ago at World Market, 12 bucks. I don't know if it was on sale, if that's your normal price, but heck, why not own one? It's one of those things that you can have in the kitchen. It takes up a small amount of space because it's so flat. Why not have it? It's a lot of fun. Okay, mise en place, a dirty pan, rolled paper towels, or maybe a side towel that you don't love, some salt, some sort of cooking fat. Spray works great. A brush is a nice thing to have around. And how about some hot coffee? Because this is a lot of work. So gotta keep ourselves motivated. I usually let my pan dry out for a day or two. I knock off any of the big debris with a dish brush. If it's really bad, you're gonna need to soak it in hot soapy water, but if that can be avoided, by all means. And I'm mindful of that. When I'm working with paella, I try to be careful how I'm making my paella so that cleaning the pan is a little easier. All right. And I'm just knocking off the big pieces here. If the rice is sticking, then give it a little bit extra elbow grease. There's a thin layer of fat left over from when I was cooking, and it's kind of sticky room temperature. One of the things I might do sometimes if I'm really having trouble is throwing this back on a burner, getting it nice and hot, letting it cool off, running it through a heat cycle. That makes removing some of the debris a little easier. All right, so salt. Salt's nice because it's obviously food safe, and it acts like, what's the word I'm looking for? An abrasive, thank you. And a little bit of cooking fat. And I like the fat, the canola oil on spray because it's so easy to get a perfectly smooth layer there. And then I've got a side towel, which is a little beat up, and I keep a couple of these around for these kinds of jobs. Now we go. I've had easier times in the past, and I will mention that if you're the type of person who likes to have your pan perfectly 100% clean without a single piece of debris or seasoning marks or burn marks, you might be a little disappointed. A paella pan seasons up like a cast iron pan, but because the metal is very light in color, you can see every little single mark, particularly on the back as well. You can see all the burn marks. And that's normal. It's just normal part of using a paella pan. So yeah, you can scrub it down to clean metal every single time with absolutely no seasoning marks, no patina that forms. But quite frankly, that's part of the fun. Now, I'm going to pour this salt out. I'm going to run this through a heat cycle, and then we're going to give it another shot. Okay, I just brought this up to smoking hot, and you can see just how much more of a dome it formed. Just heating it up slightly, it creates that shape. And you don't want to burn any extra of the debris into it too deep. So what I do is I just let it get to smoking hot. I was on the stove for maybe a minute tops, just moving it around to share the heat. All right, more salt. I might get a butter knife or something to scrape off some of these really problematic areas, and then back to it. I was just lifting it off. A green scrubby works great, but I wouldn't use a wire mesh scrubby. That's too abrasive. Now we're talking. See just how well that's now lifting up dirt. This is slightly wet, just a small amount of water on it. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid using large amounts of soap and water or setting this in the dishwasher. I put it in the dishwasher once accidentally, just absentmindedly threw it in there, turned it on, and then the entire thing corroded over. Obviously, I got it back just through seasoning it and polishing out with salt. And with that, I think that that's just part of the experience. And when I'm done with the salt, I just pour it in my sink. You can put it in the trash can too, but I missed the trash can and you have kosher salt everywhere. So mine just goes right into the sink and the water just takes it down the drain. Okay. Let me spill that out. We'll just take a moment to look at the backside. The bottom here, I just wipe it down. You could scrub this as well, but I don't. I think that this is just the normal patina of working with a pan like this. I might clean it down to shiny metal on occasion, particularly if I'm getting buildup. But for me, that's correct. Okay. I'm very happy with this. Yes, I do have a little bit of patina, leftover marks here in the middle and on the sides, but that's just part of the seasoning of the pan. To me, that I like to see a pan like that. It shows me that it's being used and used properly. Very thin layer of canola or pan spray, whatever you have kicking around, just enough that you can barely see it. And then here's one of the key things, is that you want to get all of that oil off. You want to have just the smallest amount of shine. Because what happens is this oil will actually eventually spoil, turn rancid, get sticky. And that's okay, because before we use the pan, I recommend cleaning it before you use it. So we're going to have one more opportunity to get this perfectly clean. So I run it through a heat cycle, bring it up to a nice smoking hot, hit it with some salt, wipe it out. That will really knock down any of the leftover debris that might be left in there. And your pan is freshly seasoned and ready to go. I'm really happy with that. I think paella is a lot of fun to make, and it starts with having the right cookware, the paella pan. It's one of those things that takes practice, it takes patience. But the good news is even if you make paella with less than perfect technique, you still have a delicious meal to share with friends and family. So hopefully this helps. I'd love to hear your paella adventures in the comments. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe. This is Chef Mark in the Laboratory. We'll see you next time.